There are certain feelings that do not have names. Not quite fear, not quite anxiety, not quite dread. It is something quieter than all three and somehow more disturbing because of that. A pressure at the back of the neck, a heaviness in the chest that you cannot explain away no matter how many rational thoughts you line up against it. A feeling that says very softly and very clearly, something is wrong today. She felt that feeling before she ever stepped into those woods. It started as a perfectly ordinary Saturday morning. She woke up early, the way she always did on hiking days. She laced up her boots, filled her water bottle, and headed down the path behind her house that she had taken dozens of times before. She had moved to this rural neighborhood several months ago, specifically for mornings like this. The quiet, the trees, the freedom of having all of that space just steps from her front door. But that morning, something was different. She could not explain it then, and she struggles to explain it even now. The woods looked the same. The path felt the same under her feet. The birds were calling just as they always did. Everything on the surface was perfectly ordinary, and yet something in the air felt wrong. Every snapped twig stopped her cold. Every rustle in the brush made her turn around faster than she meant to. She kept glancing over her shoulder for reasons she could not justify. She kept feeling as though the space directly behind her was occupied by something that was not there when she looked. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself she was tired. She told herself that the woods had never hurt her before, and there was no reason today should be any different. She kept walking. She pushed the feeling down. But the feeling did not go away. It followed her deeper into the trees, right up until the moment she found the clearing. And what happened in that clearing would change everything.
To understand why she was there, you have to understand who she was before any of this began. She was not a thrill seeker. She was not someone who chased adrenaline or put herself in unnecessary situations. She was, by her own description, someone who moved to the edge of a quiet, mostly rural town because she wanted peace. She wanted slower mornings. She wanted the sound of wind in trees instead of traffic. She had found all of that and more in this small neighborhood, surrounded by forests, and she had immediately fallen in love with the trails that started almost right outside her back door. Within weeks of moving in, she had made the woods her second home. She explored every path she could find, mapping them in her memory the way some people map their own neighborhoods. She found hidden clearings, forgotten creek beds, trails that branched off into nowhere and circled back to familiar ground. At some point during her explorations, she discovered that one of those small, unmarked paths connected directly to a local nature reserve, a modest park with public restrooms, a few benches, and proper marked trails that hikers used on weekends. She loved that, the idea of having her own private path from her house directly into a public park. Felt like a small gift the woods had decided to give her specifically. So every Saturday became a ritual. Wake early, pack light, head into the woods alone, explore new ground for as long as her legs felt good. Eventually make her way to the public trails, use the restrooms at the park, rest on a bench if she needed it, and then wind her way back home through the trees. She also kept a video diary of it all, not for anyone else, not for social media or views or any of that, just for herself. Short clips, sometimes only 10 or 15 seconds long, filmed on her phone in whatever interesting or peaceful spot she happened to be standing in. She would describe where she was and how she felt and then pocket the phone again. She liked the idea of one day putting it all together into a single long video something she could watch years from now and remember. One clip would become the most important thing she had ever recorded in her life. But on the morning it was filmed, it felt like nothing. Just another small moment in a quiet forest. She had found a little clearing after a long stretch of hiking. It was not spectacular. There was a small swamp at its center, muddy and still, ringed by tall grasses. She found it peaceful, though. Something about the flatness of it, the openness after so much dense tree cover, made her want to stop and breathe for a moment. She pulled out her phone. She pressed record. She described the area. She said she was probably going to head back toward the bathrooms in a few minutes and then make her way home. She pocketed the phone. And somewhere in the tree line, about 15 feet behind her and slightly to the left, a man with a purple hat stood perfectly still and watched every second of it. She did not know he was there. She had never felt that kind of unease in these woods before. That is the part she keeps coming. Sometimes miles from the nearest person. And never, not once, had she felt anything close to what she felt that day. There is something psychologists call hypervigilance. It is the state your nervous system enters when, at some level below conscious thought, it has detected a threat. Your senses become sharper. Every sound lands with extra weight. Your eyes move faster than you intend. Your muscles stay tight. Even when you try to relax them, you cannot turn it off because it is not something you're rational. Mind is controlling. It is something older than thought, something that lives in the part of you that existed long before language did. She was hypervigilant that entire morning. The sounds of the forest that had always soothed her were suddenly sharp and suspicious. A branch, cracking 20 meters away, made her stop walking and hold her breath. Wind moving through a stand of pines behind her made her spin around fast, heart already elevated, hands already braced. She kept scanning the tree line without knowing why, kept pausing at bends in the trail to listen. Before continuing, she assumed it was just a bad morning. Maybe she had not slept well enough. Maybe it was one of those days where the mind runs slightly hot and everything feels slightly threatening for no reason. She made every excuse she could think of. But here is the thing about that feeling. Here is the thing that she would only understand much later, sitting in her house with shaking hands, watching that short video over and over on her phone. Her body knew. Her nervous system had already processed something her eyes and conscious mind had not yet confirmed. Something was wrong in those woods that day. Not the trees, not the trail, not the forest itself. Something that had been present in the forest since she arrived. Something that had been moving when she moved. Something that had been stopping when she stopped. Something that had been keeping pace with her all morning without ever letting her see it clearly. And when she finally stepped into that small, unremarkable clearing with its muddy little swamp and its ring of tall grass and filmed her 10-second video diary clip, that something was standing at the edge of the trees, close enough that a camera held at the right angle would catch just a sliver of it. A purple hat. A black hoodie. 2 eyes pointed directly at the back of her head. She felt the peace of that clearing like a physical thing. She breathed. She relaxed slightly for the first time in hours. She had no idea that the clearing was the last private moment she would have that day. What was about to happen next would test everything she thought she knew about reading people. She walked to the public park the way she always did, following the small unmarked path until it joined the wider maintained trails of the nature reserve. By the time she reached the park, she had walked for hours and she was ready for the walk home. She used the public restroom. She splashed water on her face. She looked at herself in the mirror for a moment, tired but okay, and pushed open the door to head back out. He was standing right there. A man. Black hoodie. Purple hat. Sunglasses, even though the light in that section of the park was dim under the tree cover. He stepped forward with the kind of casual confidence that suggested he already knew her. He said, "Hey there," with a wide smile, the kind of smile that a person wears when they are expecting recognition in return. She did not recognize him. She said hello back because she was polite and startled, and her mind had not yet connected anything. He made a joke about nearly bumping into her at the door. She laughed because laughing is what you do when the situation is confusing and you are not yet sure if you are being ridiculous. She started to walk away. He followed, not aggressively, not rushing, just walking in the same direction she was walking, at the same pace, as though it were a coincidence. She turned around. He smiled and said it looked like they were heading to the same trail. She felt it then, that specific type of discomfort that has no single identifiable source but fills the chest immediately and completely. She told him she was actually waiting for a friend, just stretching, not leaving yet. He nodded. He kept walking. He got several feet down the trail, and then he turned around and came back. He asked for her help. He said his car hood was stuck. He said he knew how to fix it, but his hands were too large and he needed someone with small fingers to pop the latch just enough for him to get a grip on it. He asked her very nicely, very calmly, with that same easy smile. She asked him, quite reasonably, how he had just been about to take the trail and was now needing help with his car in the parking lot, which was in the opposite direction. He laughed. He said he was going to take the trail to get to the car, even though that made no sense at all given where the parking lot was located. Every alarm in her body was ringing. She held her ground. She repeated that she was waiting for someone. She did not move. He lingered. He seemed to be calculating something, watching her face for any sign that she might change her mind or let her guard slip. He was testing whether she was bluffing. She was bluffing. There was no friend coming. She had come alone the way she always did. She was alone in a public park with a man she did not know who had appeared without warning, tried to get her to follow him to his car, and was now refusing to accept her polite deflections. Then a couple came around the bend in the trail. She did not hesitate. She walked straight to the woman and greeted her like a long-lost friend. She made eye contact with her, the kind of direct, quiet, urgent eye contact that women have learned to pass between each other in moments exactly like this one. The woman looked at the man. The woman looked back at her. And she understood completely without a single word being spoken. The couple played along. Small talk, questions about family members that did not exist. The kind of warm, loud, convincing social noise that fills a space and leaves no room in it for a predator to operate. The man stood nearby for a short while longer. Then he walked toward the parking lot. She watched him get into a small red sedan. She watched him drive away. She breathed. She thanked the couple. She told them what had happened. They stayed with her. They offered to call the police. They offered to drive her home. She told them she was fine. She just wanted to get back to her house and decompress. She did not know yet that the story was far from over. The real horror was waiting for her at home, in a video she had already forgotten she filmed. She practically ran home. That is not a figure of speech. She moved through those woods faster than she ever had before, no longer curious about new paths or interesting clearings. She just wanted walls around her. She wanted a locked door. She wanted to sit in a familiar room and let the adrenaline finish working its way out of her system. When she got home, she poured herself a glass of wine. She sat on her couch. She let the silence of her house settle over her like a blanket. She had dealt with creeps before. They were unpleasant and unsettling, and she hoped she never saw that purple hat again. But she had handled it. She had gotten away. She was home. She was safe. She started going through her phone. She was not even looking for the video at first. She was just scrolling the way you do after a stressful day, looking for something to occupy the part of your brain that was still running hot. But the video was there in her camera roll. right where she had left it. That short clip from the swampy little clearing. She remembered filming it. She tapped on it without thinking much of it. And watched. She watched herself in the video, standing in front of the small swamp, describing the area, saying she was going to head to the bathroom in a few minutes. And then she saw it. It was not obvious at first. It was barely anything. A shape in the background, half hidden by the tree line at the edge of the clearing. A dark form, small in the frame, slightly blurred by distance. She might have watched past it entirely if the color had not pulled at her eye. Purple. Oh, purple hot. She stopped breathing. She went back. She played it again, leaning forward now, her face close to the screen. She paused. She zoomed in with 2 fingers until the pixels smeared and blurred, but the shape remained. Black hoodie. Purple hat. A figure at the tree line, absolutely still, standing at an angle that put her directly in the center of his view. He had been there when she was filming. He had been in those woods, in that clearing, watching her from the trees. And this was before she ever walked to the park. Before he appeared outside the bathroom. Before the car story and the smile and the too confident greeting. He had not simply stumbled across her at the park. He had followed her there. The question she could not stop asking herself was the one that made it impossible to sleep that night. How long had he been following her before she reached that clearing? Once you see something like that in a video, your brain will not let you unsee it. It does something far more uncomfortable than simply holding on to the image. It begins to reconstruct everything that came before. Every moment of that hike that she could remember, her brain began to place him in. She had felt that unease from the very beginning of the trail, that hypervigilance that had started before she was even 10 minutes into the woods. At the time, she had blamed fatigue, anxiety, a bad morning. But sitting on her couch now with that paused video on her phone screen, she understood what that feeling had actually been. He had been in the woods behind her from nearly the start. She thought about every place she had stopped that morning. Every time she had turned around on a hunch and seen nothing. Every snap of a branch that had made her catch her breath. Every moment of silence that had felt slightly too deliberate, slightly too timed, the kind of silence that happens when something in the forest has stopped moving because it does not want to be heard. He had been doing this carefully, deliberately, not the wandering of someone who happened to be near her on the same trail, not coincidence stacked on top of coincidence. This was patient, practiced following. This was someone who knew exactly how far back to stay to remain invisible. Someone who had been close enough to watch her, but far enough to disappear the moment she turned. And she had been alone out there. Miles of dense forest between her and the nearest person. No phone signal in sections. No one who knew exactly which paths she had taken that morning. She thought about the clearing, the swamp, that moment of peace she had felt when she stepped into the open space, that brief loosening of the tension she had been carrying for hours. She had felt it as a gift, a moment of calm she had earned after a stressful morning. He had been standing at the edge of the trees watching her feel that. She thought about the park, about the bathroom, about the moment he stepped forward with that easy, confident smile. He had followed her all the way to the park, kept himself hidden, waited, until she was alone outside a bathroom with no one nearby, and then made his approach. The car story, the small fingers, the parking lot in the wrong direction. She thought about what would have happened if she had followed him to that car. And she thought about the car itself, the small red sedan that had a broken hood, that he had said required her specifically to fix. The car that he climbed into without any difficulty at all, alone, and simply drove away the moment the couple removed his opportunity. Nothing about his car was broken. She called the police, and what the pieces added up to, once she had laid them all out for an officer over the phone, painted a picture she has never been able to fully erase. Reporting it to the police should have helped. Telling the story out loud, hearing a calm voice, take notes and ask clarifying questions, handing over the video as evidence should have helped. It did not help. The thing about fear, real fear, the kind that is grounded in an actual event rather than imagination, is that logic cannot fully displace it. You can know intellectually that you are safe in your house with the door locked. You can know that the man drove away in a red sedan and has no reason to know where you live. You can tell yourself that it is over, that you were careful, that you did everything right. Your body does not always believe those things. Your body is still, standing in a clearing in the woods with a purple hat at the edge of the tree line. She could not stop thinking about the timeline. She had spent hours in those woods. He had spent those same hours moving through the same woods. Behind her, which meant at some point before she reached the clearing, before she filmed the video, that caught him in the background, he had been close enough to identify her. Close enough to decide. She was a target. Close enough to make a plan. Did he know the path she would take to the park? Had he studied the area well enough to anticipate where she was headed? Was this the first time he had followed someone through those particular trails, or had he done this before? Had there been other mornings, other Saturdays, other women who had moved through these woods and felt that same nameless pressure at the back of the neck? The police searched the area. They took the report. They took the video. They noted the description of the red sedan. They conducted what she was told was an investigation. They never found him. She did not hike alone after that. Not once. The trails that had felt like her private world, the paths she had spent months exploring and mapping in her memory, the forest she had thought of as a sanctuary, none of it was safe anymore. She could not walk into those trees without imagining a purple hat somewhere in the shadows between trunks. She could not feel that particular kind of forest quiet without wondering whether the silence was natural or deliberate. The woods had been taken from her, not by a monster, not by something supernatural, by an ordinary man in an ordinary hat who had followed her with quiet, patient, deliberate intent and waited for the moment when she would be alone enough and isolated enough that no one would hear or see. What happened next? She moved away about a year later, and somewhere the man with the purple hat is still out there, still walking, still watching, and because she never learned his name, she cannot know for certain that he has stopped. There is a specific kind of horror that lives in the moment when a thing you believe to be harmless reveals itself to be a document of something terrible. The video was 10 seconds long. She had filmed it without a second thought, the way she filmed dozens of small moments on these hikes. She had pocketed her phone and kept walking. If the encounter at the park had never happened, she might have eventually watched it back while editing together her private hiking compilation and noticed nothing at all. The purple hat in the background might have simply been another hiker, distant and unremarkable, already walking away. But she knew what the purple hat looked like now. She knew how he stood. She knew the specific stillness of a person who is watching and does not want to be watched in return. She knew the shape of him, the way the black hoodie sat against his shoulders, the way his face was pointed directly toward her back with a concentration that was not casual or accidental. He was not passing through. He was not resting. He was watching her film a video knowing she could not see him, knowing she believed she was alone. She has thought many times since about what might have happened if the couple had not come around that bend in the trail, if she had been alone outside that bathroom with no one to turn to, if she had run out of deflections and he had run out of patience, if she had made the single simple mistake of letting her guard drop just enough, of deciding that she was probably being paranoid, that he was probably just someone who was not great at talking to people and meant no real harm. Most people who encounter predators never realize what they encountered until much later, if at all. The ones who survived are usually the ones who listened to the feeling that could not be named. The Ones who said no when it was uncomfortable to say no. The ones who walked toward a stranger and made eye contact and communicated something wordless but absolutely clear. She was one of those people. She listened to her body even when her mind was telling her she was overreacting. She held her ground even when holding it felt rude or awkward. She reached out to a stranger because something in her understood that she needed another person nearby and she needed them immediately. And a woman who did not know her looked at her face and understood everything without being told. That couple, whose names she never learned, may have saved her life with nothing more than willingness to play along with a stranger's improvised story about family members they had never met. She never found out their names. She never got to properly thank them. And the man in the purple hat was never caught. Here is the thing she realized much later, after many nights of replaying the video frame by frame. In the 10-second clip, you can see him in the background for approximately 3 seconds before he moves slightly to his left and is partially obscured by brush. He moves carefully, deliberately, as if he realized too late that she had raised her phone and he was in the frame. He saw the camera. While she was filming, while she was describing the peaceful little swamp and saying she planned to head to the bathroom soon, he realized he was being recorded. He adjusted his position. He moved behind a tree, but he did not leave. He waited. He let her finish the video. He let her pocket the phone. He watched her leave the clearing and followed her the entire way to the park. He then positioned himself near the bathroom and waited for her to come out, which means he knew, as he stood there outside that bathroom with his sunglasses and his too easy smile, that there was a video of him somewhere on her phone. He knew he had been partially captured. In the background, he knew she had not noticed him in it yet, because if she had, she would not have smiled politely and said hello and walked away. She would have run. He knew all of this and he approached her anyway. What does that tell you about what he was planning? Think about that for a moment. A man who is trying to avoid being identified does not approach the person who unknowingly filmed him. He walks away. He leaves. He decides the situation has become too risky and he cuts his losses. He does not put on sunglasses and position himself directly outside a public bathroom and step forward with a confident smile, unless he was not planning to leave any witnesses. She thought about that possibility for a long time before she was able to put it down. She does not hike alone anymore. She keeps the video saved in 3 different places. She looks at, sometimes, not often, but sometimes, and she thinks about the woman she was the moment it was filmed, standing in a quiet clearing with mud at her feet and trees around her, feeling, briefly, peace, not knowing that what was watching her from the shadows had already decided it had found its moment, not knowing that the moment had already been quietly, carefully destroyed by a camera she had not even meant to point in the right direction, not knowing that 10 accidental seconds of video would become the reason she was still here to tell this story. Be careful out there, because the purple hat is not an unusual thing. It is not a monster. It does not announce itself. It blends into the background of an ordinary day in an ordinary forest on an ordinary Saturday morning. It follows at a careful distance, patient and silent, and it waits for the one moment when you are alone enough and distracted enough and trusting enough. It waits for the moment when you feel safe. Do not give it that moment.